Hello, my name's Julie Cairnes and I'm a life mastery and conscious creation coach. I'd love to welcome you today to the Inner Peace Masterclass, and today we have with us the wonderful Karen McPhee. Karen, I'd love to welcome you today to the Inner Peace Masterclass.
Thank you, Julie. Lovely to be with you. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Karen is a spiritual guide who works as an intuitive healer, channel and intuitive, and I believe you've co-authored a book on crystals and smudging and healing.
Oh, no, that was just, I did some editing for that. No,
Oh,
I do have a book in the works right now, but it's not out yet.
oh, okay, for some reason. Anyway, it's still a wonderful book on smudging and clearing energies, which is very much along the lines of the work that you do. So I thought it'd be really great, just before we go any further, I know you do a lot of meditation works, if we started with the meditation just to bring everyone into a nice peaceful place before we...
I'd love to, and just to sort of tie up that previous point, yeah, that book on smudging was written by a friend of mine, and it's, as you say, it's a lovely, quick little guide for clearing, and it's absolutely wonderful, so I do recommend it. And I just helped out a little bit with the editing, but Linda did the actual work, so yeah, I'd love to. So what I'd like to do is for all of us to really take a moment to drop into the heart space, and that's the core of the work that I do now. And really, for me, it's all about, on the planet now and humanity, making the journey from the head down into the heart. So if we could just pause for a couple moments, thanks for this opportunity, and just drop in together. So what I like to recommend is everybody just close your eyes. I know some people prefer to keep them open, but most of us, it's easier to connect within with our eyes closed. And the other thing you can do is you can place your left hand in the center of your chest and just pause in this moment, feeling the warmth of your hand connecting with your heart center, and let your attention drop down into that feeling in the center of your chest, the touch, the warmth. Perhaps feeling your heart beating. Feeling the breath moving through the rise and fall in the chest. And this is such a simple act, but we mostly place our attention in thinking and in the outer world. So this gives us a chance to, really connect within, into that core of wisdom, love within us, reconnect with ourselves. So just take this moment to really just occupy the heart space. And when we do this, we typically will first encounter anything that's coming up for healing or release. So sometimes on the surface of the heart, there may be an incomplete emotion, a residue of something. There could just be a sensation, perhaps of tightness or heaviness. Not to worry, really, it's just about being with what's there, bringing your felt attention, and that alone can bring the healing and the clearing. So just take a moment, be warm towards whatever you're encountering. And just by doing that, your felt attention is the healing agency. We are each our own healer, so it just takes being present. And if we're gentle and open with what's there on the surface, we're automatically granted access to go deeper into the beautiful depths of this amazing heart of being within each of us. And just take a moment to whatever degree happens in this moment, to allow the heart to gently open, kind of like a flower opening towards the sun, but the sun is your attention. We'll just take a couple of breaths here, just resting, just being present. And I always like to end this little process by asking the heart, which ultimately it's our own deeper wisdom, asking the heart for what message it has for us in this moment. And then just listen, sense, and feel. It may come as a word, an image, a color, a feeling. Just asking the heart for its wisdom for this moment. And taking just another slow, deep breath. And don't worry if you feel like you didn't get anything. We'll talking about it later, but the meditation I'm going to provide for our listeners will give you another opportunity to do this. But always, always, even if you feel you didn't receive anything, always thank the heart. If you're new to this, we're just reestablishing the communication with that deeper part of us. But even seasoned meditators oftentimes will find that that communication needs to be refined. So just the process of asking, connecting, thank the heart for being your core of wisdom and love and compassion. Another slow, deep breath. When you're ready, you can just open your eyes, see how you feel. Now, most people find that when they do this, their center of gravity comes lower and they're kind of not up here in the headspace. So we can just rest together as we go forward.
Beautiful. Thank you. Lovely way to start. Thank you so much. Okay, well, I had a message coming through to let go of what's confusing in my life. Anything that seems ambiguous and confusing, to let it go and to stay with what seems very true and luminous. Yeah. There's a few confusing things around.
Oh, that's lovely. What a great message. Yeah, you're obviously very tuned in. So some of us won't get such a clear message, especially if we're new to this. We might just get a feeling. But over time, as you can obviously demonstrate and attest to, the voice gets clearer, the guidance gets clearer. So that's a great message. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and I feel very chilled now.
All right. Me too. My message was just...
Yeah.
Let your light shine. You let the light shine out of the heart. So
yeah.
That was mine.
Yeah, heart meditation work is really important, I think, at the moment. You do a lot of meditation work in your work, don't you? That is...
I do.
Yeah, a strong component of how you work with people.
It is. It's my favorite thing. It's the thing I do most. And part of the reason for that, Julie, is, we, like you said, and you're saying in all the interviews, we're each bringing a piece. And actually, a friend of mine helped me realize this years ago, but my piece is I always want to invite people into an experience. After being on this journey so long myself, I'm not really interested in theory anymore or speculation, or I'm interested in what's vitally alive and present. And so to bring people into the experience of connecting with themselves, their deeper being, that's really what it's about. And if we start from there, as you know, then everything can come, because there's still a habit, whether it's oftentimes even pretty advanced spiritual seekers, and this was true for me too, we're always looking outside for an answer, an understanding. That's okay. It is for a certain part of the journey, but ultimately, as far as I'm concerned, until we turn around and come within and really find that wisdom within, sometimes known as the Sat Guru, until we do that, we're dependent on something external, and we have to be in our own authority. And this is the way it happens. So that's part of why I teach meditation, because we can bring theories. Some people are here to do that. That's great. That's not me. I want people to have the experience of how awesome they are, this deep inner peace, this heart wisdom. And it's amazing. I have a lot of times people come that are beginners, a whole range, and people that are very advanced, everything in between. It doesn't matter. Everyone gets that same deeper connection through the meditation process. So I love it. It's kind of my happy place.
And there's something about slowing the breath down and the brain waves and the heartbeat, everything slowing down is very much a contributor to peace.
Yeah.
In an untold ways, I don't know if people completely understand the depth of peace that comes when we just slow down.
Yeah, that's why I like to teach the meditation, because it takes people, and it's so rewarding when someone new comes. In the past year, I've had that quite a bit, and they've never meditated before, connected, and they like, they get it on the first try, and they're like, oh, now I see why meditation is important. So exactly what you're saying, people, I want them to prove it for themselves and find it for themselves.
Yeah, I think that our culture is very addicted to speed in so many different forms. It's very, I know I do have to have my coffee every day to rev up, but it's a very addictive energy, and I think it's part of the problem. Interestingly, things don't need to happen at that really, although our vibration increasing is a different kind of conversation, because that's very much about speeding up your energy in a sense. Or is it just becoming more enlightened, enlightened?
No, that's a really great point. And wow, if we had longer, that we could just go totally into that for a couple hours. But what I just would say in a nutshell is, I feel like part of this, my experience and many other people, is, we go from being kind of addicted to whether it's caffeine, energy, activity, thought, all the energy of that. And then there's a period where when we're pulling out of that, sometimes people can feel almost a little dull or flat for a while. But if you stay with it, then we find a deeper, truer, purer source of energy and aliveness that can't even compare to. And this is self-sustaining. It doesn't need anything to fuel it or help it. It's always there. And when I gave up caffeine, that's what happened for me. One of the things as part of my process is I did learn to rely more on that true source of life force coming through. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's part of the problem, because virtually all of that is mind-based energy of the mind, of the doer, the one that's trying to make things happen. Whereas when we rest in that deeper energy source, as you know, then that life itself expresses through us, and that has a very different effect. It's effortless. Sometimes we are moving very quickly doing stuff, but it's fueled and backed by spirit, not by a separate will or ego. So yeah, I feel like you just sort of put in a capsule really one way we could describe the whole evolution that's going on right now. It's, for me, I always describe it as moving from the head to the heart, but how you said it is another way of going from that artificially supported energy down into the true self-sustaining, self-expressing energy that has an infinite source and an infinite supply. Whereas if we rely on the other things, as we've all found out the hard way, those are finite sources of fuel, and they have to constantly be re-engaged or whatever. So yeah.
It's true, like I do admit to having coffee as my vice. And I know I've had periods of time in my life where I have stopped, and honestly, it's true, your whole energy levels out. Those cycles of kind of up and down of your energy and emotions as well are affected in a sense. And particularly empaths and intuitives, I think we're very deeply affected by, coffee is just as much a drug as any other hardcore drug for an empath or an intuitive. It's can be it's very just speeds up your energy. So that whole sense of just really kind of calming and leveling out is beautifully reminding me of a beautiful place I have been. And I know that the world is very addicted to coffee still, so it's interesting.
Well, and like some people, like you said, some people I was just like you, that intuitive, empathic energy. For me, coffee had a really intense effect, where lots of other people, it's fine. So I certainly don't have a judgment about it, but that's how I learned firsthand. One of the ways that, wow, this other energy is a lot more steady and even. So.
Yeah. I think the more tuned in you get, the more you kind of start refining things out of your life.
So true.
Can I ask, Karen, I don't know if you've always worked as a spiritual guide, a little bit of your journey to where you are now, or if you've worked in this way for a long time, or has it been a journey through difficult circumstances that brought you to an understanding of...
Oh my gosh. Yes, to the second. A very difficult, very challenging journey. And I mean, it's all relative, because when I hear other people speak, sometimes I think, whoa, it's way worse than what I went through. But it's for, as you know, for each of us, we get as much as we can handle, and whatever it's going to take to the required challenges to call us forth. So yeah, when I was very young, I was empathic and intuitive. I can remember being 3-4 years old and sensing the energies of the people around me, and just a couple of highlights, and then just went on with normal life. I wasn't brought up with that kind of understanding, religion or spirituality. But when I was 16, I was diagnosed with cancer, and facing my mortality at that young age had a profound effect on me.
Wow.
Because I didn't know if I would live or die, and it turned out to be fine. But I had a moment during that process, and I was standing in my parents' driveway. I was 16, and it was the first time I had this experience. This quiet knowing came over me, and I saw with a clarity I'd never known before, like it wasn't mental. I saw, okay, I'm not going to have the life I thought I was. I'm not going to be married with children and a white picket fence. That's not what I'm here for. But it was just one moment of clarity, and then many years of suffering and struggle, and it was really tough. Lots of things happened. But when I got into my late 20s, I had a crisis in my life, in a relationship that was very troubled, and I think perhaps potentially dangerous. And I just began to be called to this path. And it started when I was lying in bed at night. I'd be awakened. The left side of my body was at the edge of the bed, and I'd be awakened with an angel running her hands or wings, whatever, down my arm. And that's before I even knew really about angels, and telling me, you've got to go, you've got to go. And I just didn't really understand it. And then someone came with a book on meditation, and I started to meditate, and I had some psychotherapy. So a lot of us go through that process. We have therapy, and then we go to meditation, then we go to spiritual pursuits. And I had a couple of profound awakenings where I started to see, the first one was I recognized my spirit, the witnessing presence. I was actually watching a Deepak Chopra video. He was on PBS. It was in the early 90s. And he said, become aware of the one who is watching. And in that moment, I popped out the back of my body and into the witnessing consciousness. And it never really went away after that, but still it was pretty challenging. And, I was still going up and down and having awakenings and openings. But then I found my first real teacher, which was Eckhardt Tolle, and learned his process of not only being present, but inhabiting the body and being very grounded within. And that really changed my life also. It gave me, because before that I was in touch with spirit, but it was unstable. It seemed like I couldn't always access it. And through his teaching, I learned how, primarily through the inner body practice, which I still do to this day and still teach, I learned to become grounded, to bring the spirit into the body. And before that, my sensitivity made me very fragile. But after that, I was no longer fragile, just sensitive, but grounded. So but I gave myself to that practice so completely that really within about a year, Eckhardt invited me to teach this to others, because I had just really realized it and cultivated it within. So that was big. And I kind of thought that was it. I'd found my purpose, and this is what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And I loved it. And being with Eckhardt was amazing. He's a great friend and mentor. But my path changed again. And I was pulled away from that. The guidance was coming inside. No, you've got to move on. This is great. You'll always have it as a foundation, but it's someone else's teaching. And I was given the message that I had my own teaching or a process to bring forward. And So life pulled me away, and it was a very difficult period of trying to find what is that and what do I do now? Because my whole being was about serving, giving, loving, helping. And when I felt like I didn't have a way to do that, I floundered for a while. And then I had an absolutely earth-shattering realization, awakening, life-changing. And after that, and my sense of self completely dissolved, and I saw through the fictional sense of self, the self-image, the I thought, the little me as a separate entity, that completely fell away, and it was amazing. And then it's been, I'm not sure how many years now, 8 or so, 9 years since then, of integrating and letting that mature and develop in me. And then about 3 years ago, I was sort of given the beginning of my mission. So it's taken a long time for it to start. And the first part of what I'm here to give, so many other people are as well, but I've got my unique way, is this thing about coming into the heart. Because even when I had that profound, typically it would be described as a non-dual realization, a recognition of unity, non-separateness, non-duality, that it was so amazing and unshakable and true and real, like you said earlier. And yet it felt like it didn't bring the heart in. And I was, for a while, kind of sitting with a few teachers, looking for people who had had this realization. I couldn't find very many at the time. And it felt like the heart wasn't included. So after a few years of that maturing in me and stabilizing, then I was brought into the heart myself. And I thought I had been before, but no. And I was actually had a visitation from Mother Mary, and she explained to me that, this isn't new, but what she said to me is that there is this wave happening. It's been going on for a long time, but there's the latest kind of crest of that wave is here now. And that is the movement, again, from the head to the heart, from thinking to feeling, from being more grounded in the heart, which is connected to being, and that I'm here to help. I'm one of many people helping us make that shift as a species. And she started to give me processes and come into sessions. She still does when I do private sessions with people or groups, and give me techniques, processes that help people not only come into the heart, but activate it and heal it and open it. So it's not the whole thing, but that's the first piece that I was given. And I still work with people on that every single day.
That's intense story of, I just want to ask you just about around having spiritual teachers. Because many, like historically and still currently, there's a sense that sometimes to really reach enlightenment, there needs to be a transmission from a spiritual teacher, what they call transmission. And if you connect with someone who is enlightened, it actually does kind of speed and quicken your own enlightenment process. And somehow it kind of awakens something within the other person, that process. So I don't know if that's the sense of what you experience with Eckhardt Tolle, but I'm also wondering, not everyone has access to an enlightened teacher in the world. Not everyone will actually have someone that crosses their path that can bring them more fully and more quickly to their enlightenment. Do you believe everyone needs to have a face-to-face spiritual teacher, or that they could reach enlightenment through their own work, their own reading of, there's some very beautiful ancient scriptures that really do open the doors. There's
absolutely
very readily available these days you can read Patanjali, there's a lot of very ancient yogic scriptures you can reach, and
absolutely
carry the seeds of enlightenment if you can read into them. I mean, I don't think everything's completely been made available. I'm sure there's still a lot of hidden secret scripts that we haven't read.
Yeah, that are good.
Yeah, but we still got there's some good things that help. Yeah.
Well, it's one of those age-old questions, and everybody has a different opinion about it. And I think the best thing is for myself, for really all of us, to speak from our own experience. And what I feel, okay, this first part I'm going to say is really what I would put in the place of speculation, just theory. I'm thinking specifically of Autobiography of a Yogi, when Yogananda talks about his process. And if we just for a moment bring in the possibility of multiple lifetimes, some of the things I remember reading in that book and other teachings that say, let's say, just for the purpose of discussion, that we do have multiple lives, that maybe we have done the spiritual practice lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and then we're ready. And so when we're ready, anything can trigger our awakening. But for most people, it is beneficial to have a teacher. Now, what I'm going to say about it, though, this may be controversial. For me, having a teacher is a double-edged sword. And I'm speaking from my own experience. Yes, when we have the teacher, like you said, they've got a presence. There's nothing that can replace being in the physical proximity of someone who's in that frequency. Our system starts to come into resonance with it, and it can maybe save you, who knows, lifetimes or years or decades. No question about it. And I would say, depending on each person's unique destiny and where they are in their whole life stream, which to me would be way beyond this one lifetime. Yeah. For some people, it's their destiny, or it's what is meant to be for them to stay and hang out with a teacher for a lifetime or maybe many lifetimes, perhaps some of the Buddhist traditions or whatever, where you just keep going on there. That's fine. But for most of us, I would say, especially in the West, I'll speak for myself. If we stay with a teaching or a teacher too long, and it's not our destiny to be with them through that's not our whole path in a lifetime, we can become dependent on them, and it can actually start to have the opposite effect. It can start to limit our unfoldment. Yes. And so when I got the internal message to leave, to move on from my association, let's say, with Eckhardt, not with him, but just to move on from what I was, my function, my role there. Yeah. And my mind came in and said, no way, because to me, that was it. Him, his teachings, the state of being in that wonderful situation. But something said no, and the ego came up and said, no, I'm not leaving. And so life actually gave me life-threatening illness that forced me to leave. I had no choice but to move away, because I was living very near to him, studying with him every day. I had to move away. Life will intervene if we're willing. So I finally got the message, but I got so much in that time with him. And yet for me, there was more. And one of the biggest lessons for me, and many people I've spoken to, is to come back to your own authority, because no matter how clear and free of the ego or whatever your teacher is, the very dynamic of having someone that's the expert and you're the student and they're the master, that whole setup is disempowering ultimately if you stay too long. So that's what happened for me. I had to find because I really could say unconsciously, I made my teacher my God, and I couldn't see it until I was pulled away and could get some perspective. And it's got to be found within. So it depends really on where we are in our progression as a soul. I feel like probably everybody does get contact with a teacher, but maybe not in this lifetime. And just my final comment on that would be, like you said, I have had awakenings happen from reading information from someone who's in that frequency. So that probably, when that happens for us, it means we're ripe for that. Mother Mira talks about being ripe. You could read that 10 years ago, nothing. 10 years later, you read it, boom. So if it's from a source that is truly living in that enlightened state, that awakened state, their words will have the power, and it can happen just from reading. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
It's interesting, Guy. For me, it's a given that we have had many lifetimes. And then I do remember some people don't actually believe that. I think some people think that and believe, and I respect this belief, that this is their only lifetime. So, I mean, for me, I have past life recall, and many people do. Even if, you know, you look at life as lifetimes as not linear, like time is not linear, there's been very much a whole lot more happen than what's happened within this lifetime. And, you know, like, we're here to encapsulate it. But it is, I think, each lifetime a culmination of our spiritual experience, in a sense, personal evolution. Although
Yeah,
you
I mean,
kind of look back and go, well, perhaps I was even more enlightened back in the day than I forgot. I have to remember. Just want to ask you, just around working with shadow stuff, because I believe that, how do you help people confront the difficult issues of the past trauma that's become kind of negative energy around them? How do you personally work with people around that?
oh, yeah. I'm so glad you asked, Julie. That's a huge component of the work that I do.
Yeah.
And I feel like, for me, it's interwoven with the heart connection. That's why when we did that little process earlier, I always mention that. So one of the ways into the shadow is through the heart chakra, the heart center. And really the heart, the true heart center is not just this little thing in the chest. It's the size of an ocean. It's enormous. But it's like, if you think of it like an ocean, on the surface there are waves. And so a lot of the shadow material is kind of just sitting in the heart space. I mean, it's in other parts of the body too, but this is one of the ways we can access it, is by just sitting in the heart space and being with what's there, as we did earlier. That piece of the shadow that's ready to be integrated, healed, released, whatever, it's right there and available. But because of the way the lower brain works and the ego, we're trained from certainly the time we're born, maybe earlier. The primal mind, or the lower brain, takes us away from discomfort. And we're not even conscious that we're doing that. And so that's why these things will stay held, whether it's the muscles or the energy field or the chakras. They're held because our conscious felt attention is what liberates. That's what does it. My friend Pamela Wilson, who's a wonderful spiritual teacher, she talks about, we in fact are the sages, and we're meant to give that satsang, or healing, liberation, with that which is within us. But for me, first we have to encounter it. So it's part of it is the education. I'm talking about this a little bit in my book too. Just simply, I mean, there are therapists who are trained to do this. That's not me, but just simply to just recognize in yourself, first of all, that there's behaviors that indicate you're over a shadow issue or in the middle of one, and to just start to watch how your mind will try to take you away from it. Distraction, procrastination, avoidance, denial behaviors, including addictions. It's very often just trying to take us away from it, because the lower brain, the survival part of us, believes discomfort is life-threatening. It sees it's potentially going to kill us. So it's a process, first of all, recognizing, oh, wow, I've been surfing on the net for 4 hours and haven't even taken a breath or been aware of anything. Wow, I wonder. So I have this really simple process that I do and use with other people. As soon as you notice that you're doing something, not the thing in itself, but something where you can tell there's an edge to it, or you're trying to avoid something, or you're overindulging in something, you just stop. What I recommend people do is stop, place their hand on their heart, take a breath, and ask inside, what am I avoiding feeling? And right away, that'll take you inside. And very often it's going to be in the heart space, and that wave. And if you just be with it, that alone can begin to liberate and heal, because it's amazing, our presence, our felt attention, our awareness is the power that heals us. It's incredible. But we have to, again, like that image of the sun, we have to shine the light on those parts of us. And in my experience, the only thing we can truly heal, as far as I know, is what's actually alive in the moment. So it's something that's vibrating. It's something that's showing up as an emotion, a sensation, something in your field. In the moment when you feel it, detect it, that's the moment when it can be liberated. So it's why it's very helpful to have a meditation practice, especially if it's body-based or heart-based. If you're already rooted in your field, your overall field, which includes your body, your energy field, if you're rooted in that all the time, the moment part of the shadow comes up for healing, you'll catch it while it's still just a vibration. And oftentimes it's a vibration very similar to when you've had too much caffeine. It's like a buzzy. That's how it starts. If we catch it right away and bring attention to it, feel it, let it be there, it will actually get liberated just like that. But if we don't catch it right away, most of us don't because we're distracted through thoughts in the outer world, it then will turn into an emotion, a negative or harmful behavior. So it kind of goes through and it can turn into drama. So it's best if you just kind of stay as centered as you can and notice right away and start to track your own patterns. Shadow patterns are always about avoiding, in some way, avoiding something that's in there. But the thing that the survival mind doesn't understand is it thinks this is this horrible, big, scary thing. But usually, and I have had some big trauma, so I can tell you, usually it's literally a matter of seconds, a few seconds of real discomfort, and then you bring your warm, embracing presence, and whatever it is starts to calm and release. In under a minute, it starts to shift. And as you stay with it longer, it shifts. You go into deeper levels of it. So that's sort of a beginning way to get in touch, but also a way for maintenance once you have cleared more of the shadows. So I would say it first starts with the awareness of how the unconscious is taking you away from what's here that still needs to be liberated, what's in the shadow. And it's very, very obvious once you start to look. And then secondly, asking that question, what am I avoiding feeling? Just listen. And the more you do that, the quicker you'll get the answer. I can share an example from my own life. You ask that question and then you just be with the feelings that are there. Now, sometimes we do need deeper shadow work, and I sometimes refer people, and there's different books, but if you just do this alone, you will start to, really what it's about is integrating parts of us that are frozen, locked into an emotion that's unresolved and unfelt, and once it's felt, the energy comes back into the totality of our being. We have more wholeness, but we also are able to reintegrate the qualities that were locked in there. So, for example, a lot of women, and I had this too, I had trouble with powerful women who seemed bitchy, but in fact they were just confident or empowered or assertive. And I had trouble, especially when I was younger, and I would withdraw or avoid those kinds of women. And then I started to get in touch. And one of the books that really helped me when it first came out, and I still recommend it today, is The Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. It helps you get in touch with your shadow and your projections. So anyway, I did the work and I saw that I had suppressed my own inner empowered woman, herself, and then was projecting that out there. So when I got in touch with that inside, I no longer had that issue, and I had reclaimed my own assertiveness through that process. So every shadow behavior, there's a gift or divine quality that's in there, covered over or locked in with an unresolved emotion and limiting belief. When you get in there, you get the quality back too. It's amazing.
That is amazing. And Karen, it's amazing that we've actually run out of time.
What? We just started.
Oh. I know, but no, we have. And I just, I really could genuinely keep talking about this for hours, and I'm so sorry that we need to wind down. And can we talk to the viewers about the free gift that you're offering to them, which is a meditation, before we finish?
Okay, thank you. Boy, that sure went fast. Yes, so the meditation, the free gift is an audio meditation people can download. So there'll be a link for that. And it's just a longer, deeper version of what we did earlier. So to connect to the heart. And what Mother Mary told me, and I've experienced this now with hundreds of people I've shared this with and myself, when we come fully into that heart space and really abide there, it actually causes an activation. Our presence, our consciousness because typically we haven't been abiding in there. When we come in, it causes an activation, and it awakens the heart, it opens the flow of energy and helps to establish that communication to our own inner wisdom. So it's a process for helping with that, and also helping to begin to clear some of the shadow and get the messages. So it'll just be a guided meditation people can access.
Oh, thank you so much. Sounds wonderful. I want to thank you so much for speaking with us today and for the amazing work that you're doing in the world as a spiritual guide. And just thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge with us today, and bless you on your path. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, and bless you. I'm so grateful that you're doing this, Julie, bringing this wonderful teaching and wisdom to everybody. Thank you for the opportunity, and wonderful to be with you and your audience. Thank you so much.
It's an amazing process.